A year ago, in the first months of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were major concerns that the pandemic would lead to food shortages, that food prices would rise, and markets would become volatile. These fears were shaped by what happened during the 2007-2008 global food price crisis, the event that gave rise to the establishment of AMIS. We did witness some volatility during the early part of the pandemic, but fortunately nothing like the 07-08 crisis. What then was different? First, world markets for staple foods were much better stocked at the beginning of 2020. Second, this time only few countries resorted to trade restrictions. And third, supply disruptions because of COVID-19 did not affect staple food supplies as much as initially feared. This does not mean, however, that we should not worry about food price volatility. We should, and it is important, to have a good early warning system to signal market instability. Pandemic or not, monitoring price fluctuations is important as it provides a temperature check on the status of markets. Price volatility reflects instability and uncertainty in markets. This, in turn, affects production and investment decisions by farmers, traders, processors, and investors, and it affects consumer behavior. High volatility can undermine food security. Given its importance, what is needed? Some degree of volatility is always present in markets, and market players tend to take that into account. It is much harder to anticipate larger shocks and swings in market prices. In the aftermath of the 07-08 food price crisis, IFPRI developed an early warning tool that measures excessive or unusual food price variability. What does the excessive food price variability tool do? Updated daily, it provides an accurate assessment of price volatility for key staple crops in world markets. By using expected returns in futures markets prices closest to maturity, it anticipates the probability of increased volatility in spot markets. The volatility index is published and updated every day on IFPRI's food security portal, and it uses a traffic light system to signal degrees of volatility by way of easy early warning. Looking at historical trends in maize and wheat prices, the spikes in 07 and 08, as well as in 2010 and 11, clearly stand out. If there was a spike in 2020, it was mild. The graphs show daily spot market prices. So, when do we call volatility excessive? As said, the excessive food price variability index is calculated using expected returns on futures market prices. In this graph, the blue lines show the day-to-day percentage changes in those returns for maize and hard wheat. The red lines depict the estimated 95th percentile in the distribution of those price returns. When the price returns exceed this threshold level, we identify it as an excessive or unusual level of price variability, which is identified by the vertical light red lines in the figures, and then a daily alert is generated. As you can see, the period around and following the 07-08 crisis was characterized by high price volatility. Wheat also faced a great deal of volatility around 2010, and maize price volatility stretched into 2012. With the help of this volatility index, we were able to detect very early on the increased volatility in especially wheat and rice markets during April to June of 2020. Trade restrictions by major producing countries triggered this volatility in good part. G20 leaders warned timely against the risks to market stability of escalating trade restrictions, which helped stem the volatility. A traffic light system facilitates easy identification of price volatility. Here you can see how prices have behaved since the start of the pandemic. As it shows, from April to June, world market prices for wheat were in excessive price volatility for 37 days, coinciding with the introduction of export bans by some major producers. Markets have remained relatively stable after those trade restrictions expired. There is no guarantee, of course, that prices will remain relatively stable. In fact, as you can see in the last box, there has been a great deal of maize price volatility recently, driven by tighter supply than forecast. This is important to monitor. The Food Security Portal's Excessive Food Price Volatility Index provides you a daily update of the temperature of markets for staple foods. This way, it provides an early warning of possible turbulent times ahead, and this should help make us better prepared to respond.